Well, yesterday, ITN's correspondent James Mates became the first British television journalist to report from the scene of mass graves discovered at the weekend. Today, NATO peacekeepers reached the graves in the town of Kosvo. James Mates went with them and watched local people pay their respects.
In the town of Kosvo in southern Kosovo, the doctors and nurses of the local hospital left their patients briefly this afternoon to march in solemn procession through the streets and up the hill to the graveyard. They are mourning 3 of their colleagues, 3 young nurses killed by the Serbs on April the 9th. 3 out of more than 80 alleged to have been massacred here in just a single day. They laid flowers upon the mass graves hastily dug by the Serb police, graves in which their colleagues now lie. There are no markings here, no headstones, just numbers on wooden posts. Since ITN first broadcast pictures of these graves yesterday, military investigators have rushed down here. All day today they have been securing and then marking out the site. The investigation of war crimes is among KFOR's top priorities, and Kosvo is the first major discovery since the Serbs were ordered out. Acutely conscious now that this graveyard may contain vital evidence of war crimes, the American authorities who now control this sector have decided to seal it up. They say they're going to keep it closed until an investigation team can get here. 2 of the 3 nurses who died were both just 21 years old. Lumnia Raka and her cousin Yehona Raka had stayed behind in Kosovo to care for those too sick or too old to flee. This afternoon we were able to show Yehona Raka's father, Sabit, a report of the massacre in an Albanian newspaper, the first formal confirmation he'd had of his daughter's death. She was ready to give her life for freedom, he said, and that's what happened. She died for freedom. She tried to help other people. It is likely to be many months before the laborious processes of forensic investigation can establish what happened here, but the local people say they do have faith NATO can bring the people who did this to justice. James Mates, ITN, Kosvo, southern Kosovo.
And that's nearly it for now from me here in the Kosovo capital, Pristina. Over now to Julia in London.
Well, Dermot, as you and Mark Austin were discussing, the war is over, but the tensions and the problems of Kosovo are still far from over. What is NATO in the short term planning to do to try to avert some of the bloodshed?
Well, it's a bit of a cliche, Julia, but it's true to say that in this situation every day does throw up another challenge for KFOR. First and foremost, as we've been hearing, they have to consolidate the huge numbers of troops and equipment that they've moved in just the past 3 days or so. They then have to synchronise with the Serb pullout, as Mark Austin was saying, something General Sir Mike Jackson has been emphasising today, making very sure that they move in as rapidly as possible behind the retreating Serbs to prevent a power vacuum developing and the KLA, ethnic Albanians, exploiting that.
And very briefly, Dermot, Pristina itself, we'd heard it had been virtually flattened by NATO. Is it really as bad as that?
Well, in the city centre here, it's relatively unscathed. I think it may be a testament to the accuracy of NATO bombers. There are a large number of residential areas around here. And also there's an air of relative normality returning to this city after 11 weeks of bombing and blackouts. Apart from the curfew, there are people in some of the cafes and restaurants around here. So, as I say, a degree of relative normality returning.
Dermot, thanks very much indeed. Tensions also mounting tonight in the diplomatic standoff over Kosovo between NATO and Russia. Tony Blair said there could be no question of Kosovo being partitioned, and the Foreign Secretary Robin Cook criticised Russia for sending in its troops ahead of the Allied forces. In Serbia, the Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic made a defiant public appearance, his first since the airstrikes began. Kevin Dunn reports.
The West continued to play down the significance of Russia's control of Pristina airport, while Tony Blair insisted it shouldn't lead to the partitioning of Kosovo.
I understand Russian sensitivities. We meet those Russian sensitivities, but there can be no question of a de facto partition of Kosovo. That's not what we fought this about. We fought this so that people in Kosovo, whether they're Serbs or Albanians, have the right to live free from persecution and in peace.
Russian troops have controlled the airport since their unexpected dash to Pristina ahead of NATO. And although KFOR says it does not need the airfield, The Foreign Secretary made clear in the Commons he did not want any further surprises from Moscow.
It was plainly unsatisfactory that Russian troops should have entered without coordination. Yesterday I spoke at length to Igor Ivanov, the Russian Foreign Minister, and we agreed that there should be no more surprise moves. He gave an undertaking that Russia would not deploy any further troops without prior agreement.
President Clinton again phoned Boris Yeltsin to discuss the issue, and Washington announced there would be face-to-face talks with the Russians in the next few days.
We welcome Russian participation in KFOR, and we are in constant high-level discussions with Russia to work out an appropriate role. And we have made real progress today.
Meanwhile, President Slobodan Milosevic made his first public appearance since the NATO campaign began, addressing a rally in Serbia's second city, Novi Sad, alongside a destroyed bridge. He talked not of defeat, but of rebuilding Serbia in peace. The Foreign Office says Russia is welcome to join the international force in Kosovo and would have a role to play in reassuring the Serb minority. But it is welcome only as part of a single integrated operation. Kevin Dunn, ITN, at the Foreign Office.
To other news now, Labour is vowing to stay pro-single currency despite a crushing defeat in the European elections. The Conservatives won more than a third of the vote, but on a turnout of just 23%, a record low. With all the results in, the Conservatives have 36 seats compared to 18 in 1994. Labour got 29 seats this time compared to 62. The Lib Dems have 10, up from just 2. Proportional representation gave smaller parties 12 seats compared to 5 in 1994. Here's Michael Brunson.
The Tory party is smiling and cheering again. Excellent results in these Euro elections nationwide follow its strong showing in last month's local elections. And William Hague says that his firm stand on the single currency is why they've done well.
I know this is a novelty in recent politics. That here we've got a politician, here we've got a party leader who said, this is what I believe and this is what we're going to campaign for.
That is what we're going to do. You don't believe, do you, that Britain should ever join a single currency?
I believe in my policy, which is that I don't rule it out forever, but the Conservative Party is committed to keep the pound at the next general election.
It was noticeable that two of the smaller parties who also opposed the single currency also did well. The Greens got 2 seats, and the UK Independence Party, which opposes Europe, period, got 3. And in the number 10 garden, Tony Blair admitted that Labour had been taught a lesson.
Obviously, these are very disappointing results. I don't pretend otherwise, and we've got to listen and reflect upon the lessons of the election.
And according to ITN's election analyst, Mr Blair and Labour do indeed have much to reflect on.
The notion that they would be soundly beaten by the Conservatives and themselves pick up less than 30% of the vote, I think has come as a surprise, perhaps not least to those people in Millbank Tower finding Labour's strategy.
The Liberal Democrats who won said that Labour's lukewarm attitude to the euro had been a problem.
It is a matter of great regret that the Labour government still appears to have only half-hearted convictions and no courage at all on the European issue.
So what does Tony Blair do? Does he now try and push the euro hard and hold the referendum early in the next Parliament as promised? Or does he try and put the whole thing on the back burner? Michael Brunson, ITN, Westminster.
Tony Blair unveiled a controversial plan today aimed at cutting teenage pregnancies in Britain by half. The £60 million initiative comes as figures show teenage pregnancies and births here are at record levels. Today's proposals would see mothers under 18 refused council flats and offered accommodation in hostels instead.